Hello everyone, myself Sriram K, Associate Professor in Department of Pharmacology, and today's topic is cardiac cycle. So, what is cardiac cycle generally? In sense, the heart will receive the blood and will give the blood to the whole parts of the body. So, how many minutes it will take to enter into the heart and going out of the heart? So, the blood in how many seconds it will take to pump one complete cycle is called cardiac cycle. So, let's get into the topic. So generally, definition and overview, the sequence of mechanical and electrical events that occurs during one complete heartbeat. So that is what I said, for one complete heartbeat. So that complete heartbeat will take the blood out of the heart and will take into the heart. So that is the complete 1 minute. That is complete 0.8 seconds of the heartbeat. So generally heartbeats per minute is 75 beats per minute. So this is mainly divided into two main phases. One is systolic phase and another one is diastolic phase. So systolic phase consists of contraction and ejection, and diastolic phase relaxation and filling process. So generally this cardiac cycle, that is the entire cardiac cycle, is we already seen that it is only 0.8 seconds. So within that 0.8 seconds, the blood will come into the heart and go out of the heart, and also the beat will complete. So that is the one cardiac cycle, that is 0.8 seconds. So that 0.8 seconds is divided into 7 phases. That is, first is atrial contraction, isovolumetric contraction, rapid ejection, reduced ejection, isovolumetric relaxation, rapid filling, and reduced filling. So this is the all the 7 phases will consist in the cardiac cycle. So everything happens in 0.8 seconds. So let's get into each phases. So the first phase is atrial contraction. So what happens in the atrial contraction? SA nodes fires, then atria will contract. So it will push the last 20 to 30 percentage of the blood into the ventricles. So that is the first phase. So once the SA node fires, it pushes 20 to 30 percentage of the blood into the ventricles. Then important one is atrial kick, important in the exercise and heart failure. Okay, so that is you have to note down in the another point, that is when your heart is failure or if you are in exercise, the atrial kick will increases the rate. Then pressure. So what happens to the pressure? Atrial pressure will rise to 5 to 10 mm per Hg, and ventricular pressure will be 5 to 8 Hg. And ECG correlation will be, it will be correlated in the P wave. Okay, so ECG generally we seen that PQRST wave. So in that, P wave is correlated with the atrial contraction, and sound is none. Okay, normally S4 if pathological, maybe we will get the sound, otherwise we will not get any sound. Then phase 2 is isovolumetric contraction. What happens is ventricle begins to contract, all valves are closed, that is AV valves closed, semilunar valves closed. Okay, that is semilunar valve is not closed, it is already closed, but it is not open now. Then ventricular volume is constant. Then pressures rise rapidly in this phase. When pressure, ventricular pressure rises from 8 mmHg to 80 mmHg. So this is why pressure rises rapidly, and ECG correlation is it is related to R wave. Okay, so in QRS wave it is related to the R wave. And heart sound, we hear the first heart sound of S1, lump sound, closure of AV valves. Okay, that is mitral and tricuspid valve. So we hear the first sound in the phase 2. Going into the phase 3, in phase 3, that is rapid ejection, what happens is ventricular pressure exceeds the aortic or pulmonary pressure. Then semilunar valves open. In this semilunar valve opens, the blood is ejected rapidly into the aorta and pulmonary artery. Then 70% of the stroke volume is ejected in the phase. Okay, so the almost 70% of the blood volume is ejected in this phase. And pressure, what will happen to the pressure? That is LV pressure, that is 80 to 120 mmHg, and aortic pressure, that is 120 mmHg, that is systolic, and right ventricular pressure, that is 15 to 25 mmHg. Okay, so this is the pressure. And going into the fourth phase, that is reduced ejection phase. What happens in this phase is ventricular phase begins to fall, ejection slows down, and remaining 30% of the stroke volume ejected, and end of the systole, that is remaining in the previous phase, that is 70% volume only ejected, and remaining 30% volume is ejected this phase. Okay, so there is the end of the systole. Then pressure, what happens to the pressure? Ventricular pressure falls below the aortic pressure, and aortic pressure peaks then declines. Okay, so aortic pressure will raises suddenly and then it will decline. And the volume, what happens to the volume, that is end systole volume reached 50 to 60 mm. Okay, then going into the fifth phase, that is isovolumetric relaxation phase. What happens in this phase? Ventricles relax, all valves close again. Okay, so right from the beginning, when the all valves are closed, now again the valves, all the valves are closed again. Pressure drops rapidly. So in this phase, pressure suddenly falls. Okay, and volume is constant. Okay, and pressure, ventricular pressure falls below the aortic pressure, that is aortic valve closes and continues falling until the below atrial pressure. Okay, then ECG, with the ECG correlation, it is related to the T wave. Okay, then we hear the second sound in this phase. So in the isovolumetric relaxation phase, we hear this dub sound, S2 sound, closure of semilunar valves. So going into the sixth phase, that is rapid filling phase. What happens in this phase is ventricular pressure falls below the atrial pressure, AV valves open, blood rushes from the atrium into the ventricles. That is 70 to 80% of the ventricular fillings occurs here. Okay, this is why it is called rapid filling. So maximum number of, that is 70 to 80% of the blood volume is filled, ventricular filling occurs in this phase only. Then ventricular volume automatically, as we have seen, 70 to 80% of the blood volume means automatically the ventricular volume increases rapidly. Okay, so in this we hear the sound of S3. Okay, this is not normally heard by normal people. Only if there is any diseases, that like if pathologically the children's are, and children, we may hear this sound, or in heart failure case we may hear this S3 sound. Okay, otherwise we don't hear for the normal people. Then phase 7, that is the last phase, reduced filling phase. In this phase, what happens means pressure gradient between atria and ventricular equalizes. So in this phase, the pressure gradient will be equalizes in this phase in ventricular and atria, and slow filling of ventricle. So in this phase, the ventricle is still filling, but it is slowly filling, and blood returns to atria from veins. Okay, then last until next atrial contraction. So this will last until the next atria contract. So duration of this phase, this is the longest phase at rest. Okay, and shortens with exercise. Okay, so when we are in the rest, when the body is at rest, it is the longest phase. But when it will run, we are doing any exercise or running, so this is the shortest phase. Okay, so what happens to the volume is end diastolic volume reached 120 to 130 ml. Okay, so this is the time name. As we have seen, this everything happens in the 0.8 seconds cycle. So all these phases with how many seconds it will take is given in the summary. So as we come to the end of the slide, so this is the cardiac cycle. So completely it happens only in 0.8 seconds, that is called complete cardiac cycle. So once the cycle is completed, again it back going back to the repeatedly, it will go back to the same system. Okay, so that is called the cardiac cycle. Thank you.